June 4, 1944. North Atlantic, off the coast of West Africa. The sea is calm, deceptively so. Beneath a thin gray horizon, the escort carrier USS Guadalcanal plows through the swell, flanked by her hunter-killer escorts, USS Chatelaine, USS Pillsbury, and USS Jinx. Overhead, the sun glints off the wings of a circling FM-2 Wildcat, its pilot peering into the ocean for a telltale shimmer, a periscope, a ripple, anything. Below the waves, Captain Lieutenant Harold Lang of U-505 feels the walls of his submarine vibrate softly. Diesel engines drone. Sweat beads on foreheads in the stale air. They've been hunted for days, and the crew knows it. The Allies' aircraft appear as if summoned from nowhere. Every radio transmission, every coded message to headquarters in Lorient seems to bring American destroyers closer. Lang grips the periscope handles, eyes narrowing. He knows the U-boat's once-feared dominance is waning. "We'll head north," he mutters in German. Surface briefly to charge batteries, then dive again. His tone is calm, but inside, he senses something's wrong. The enemy seems to know where he is, as if they're reading his mind. Up above, on the USS Chatelaine, sonar operators lean close to their headsets. "Contact bearing 210, one shouts. The destroyer turns hard to port, depth charges armed. Moments later, the sea erupts, deep concussions booming across the water, geysers rising behind the stern. Inside you, 505, lights flicker. The hull creaks like an animal in pain. "Damage aft," an engineer yells. Water sprays through a cracked seal. The air grows thick with oil and panic. Lang makes the only choice he can. Surface. Emergency surface. When the U-boat bursts from the depths, it's like a beast gasping for air. American ships close in immediately. The Chatelaine opens fire with 20mm cannons, riddling the deck with bullets. The Guadalcanal's Wildcat swoops low, strafing near the conning tower to force surrender. The crew scrambles out, waving shirts, jumping into the sea. Lang stays behind for one final act, to destroy everything. He grabs a demolition charge, intending to scuttle the sub. But an explosion in the engine room throws him off his feet. Smoke pours through the compartments. The charges fail to detonate fully. By 12:15 p.m., American sailors from the USS Pillsbury are boarding the abandoned U-boat, the first successful capture of a German submarine since 1815. Inside, they find something extraordinary. The boarding party from the USS Pillsbury approaches with weapons ready, eyes wide beneath steel helmets. The U-boat drifts like a wounded beast, black paint glistening under the tropical sun. Waves slap against the hull as Ensign Albert L. David, leading the team, climbs over the conning tower and drops into the shattered control room below. Inside, it's chaos and gold for Allied intelligence. Steam hisses from broken pipes. Chart tables are scattered with navigation logs, coded message pads, and half-burned documents. A faint smell of diesel and cordite fills the air. The men move quickly, knowing any moment the submarine could slip beneath the waves. "Get the Enigma. Check the radio room." David barks. Petty Officer Ray Witter shoves open a steel hatch and steps into the communications compartment. There, bolted to the desk, dented but unmistakable, sits the Enigma machine, its rotors glinting in the dim light. Next to it, a waterproof bag stuffed with codebooks and signal keys, miraculously dry. "My God," someone whispers. They left it intact. The men start passing equipment hand to hand, hauling out everything they can. Charts, cipher books, signal logs, even the ship's bell. The task is frantic. The submarine is still taking on water. Below decks, compartments flood steadily. At 12:45 p.m., a cry from topside. "She's sinking." David looks once more through the narrow corridor of the U-boat. Empty bunks, half-eaten rations, a crucifix hanging crooked by the galley, before shouting, "Out! Everyone out!" Minutes later, the U-505 vanishes beneath the Atlantic. But the Americans have already taken her soul. As the Guadalcanal hauls in survivors, Captain Daniel Gallery, commander of Task Group 22.3, learns the news. They've captured not just a U-boat, but her cryptographic heart. The implications ripple instantly through Allied command. For months, intelligence officers have been fighting a silent war of mathematics. The codebreakers at Bletchley Park struggling to stay ahead of the ever-changing German cipher networks. But now, a live Enigma machine with intact rotors and daily keys means one thing. The Allies' window into the Kriegsmarine's communications will remain wide open. On deck, soaked and shaken, Harold Lang is dragged aboard under guard. His uniform is torn, his face pale from exhaustion. He looks across the ocean where his command just disappeared, and then at the cluster of American sailors carefully wrapping the Enigma machine in canvas. He frowns. You already knew, didn't you?" he mutters in German. The guard doesn't respond, but the faintest smile crosses the sailor's face. Later that evening, the captured crew of U-505 sit huddled on the deck of the USS Guadalcanal, wrapped in gray Navy blankets. The sky has turned amber with the setting sun. Nearby, sailors work methodically to secure their extraordinary prize. Charts drying on the rails, codebooks carefully catalogued, the Enigma machine stowed in a sealed crate. Captain Daniel Gallery watches in silence, pipe smoke curling from his lips. He knows what this means. Every letter, every convoy route, every submarine order the Germans believed was secret might now lie bare before the Allies. "Send word to Admiral Ingersoll," he says to his communications officer. "We've got ourselves a whole U-boat and her codes." Below deck, the prisoners are separated. Captain Lieutenant Harold Lang sits alone in the sick bay, a bandage wrapped around his head from the earlier explosion. The ship's doctor, an American lieutenant, checks his pulse. "You're lucky to be alive," the doctor mutters. Lang's eyes, sunken but alert, fix on the doctor. "You knew we were there," he says quietly. "Before we surfaced. Before we sent any message." The doctor hesitates, then shrugs. "We were hunting," he says simply, and leaves it at that. But Lang can't stop thinking. How had the Americans found them so easily? The Kriegsmarine's orders had been transmitted on Enigma, just like every other mission. Each key change, every rotor setting, was rotated with precision. Their code was supposed to be unbreakable. Unbreakable, the word hammers in his mind. He remembers Admiral Donit's insistence that the Allies were blind, that their convoys wandered helplessly through the Atlantic. But the war at sea has turned against them. Submarines sinking faster than they can be built, convoys slipping past ambush lines as if warned in advance. Could it be true? Could the Allies have been reading their signals all along? The realization chills him more than any depth charge ever did. If so, the Reich's grand illusion of secrecy has been a ghost for years. Their victories merely tolerated, their defeats inevitable. On the bridge, Captain Gallery's radio men send encrypted updates to Washington and London. The news reaches Bletchley Park, where analysts gather around teletype printouts as if reading a ghost story. "They got one alive?" asks a young Wren. "Intact?" "Yes," another replies. "Completely intact, including the cipher materials." A silence falls. They all know what it means, a chance to verify, to cross-check, to anticipate every remaining German move at sea. Back in the Atlantic night, the Guadalcanal's deck lights flicker on. The ocean gleams faintly below. Lang looks through the porthole from his confinement room, at the stars, at the endless horizon, and realizes the true defeat has already happened, long before his submarine surfaced. June 19, 1944. Port Royal Bay, Bermuda. A strange silhouette rises against the docks, a captured German submarine draped in tarps, guarded by armed Marines. The U-505 has been secretly towed across the Atlantic, hidden from the press, and moored beneath the humid Caribbean sun. The reason for the secrecy is absolute. The Allies can't risk the Germans discovering she's been captured. If the Kriegsmarine realizes the Americans have seized an operational U-boat, complete with its Enigma machine and codebooks, they'll immediately change their entire encryption system. And then, years of code breaking would be undone overnight. So the operation remains classified top secret. The U-505's crew, including Captain Harold Lang, are declared lost at sea in German records. Even their families will receive death notices from the Reich. Inside a converted warehouse near the harbor, American and British intelligence officers examine every inch of the submarine. They scrape salt from valves, photograph gauges, study every document that survived the flooding. A naval linguist flips through soggy code tables. Daily key group schedules. May through July, he mutters. Christ, this fills in half our gaps. Nearby, an American cryptanalyst studies the Enigma machine itself. The brass keys are dull with corrosion, but the wiring beneath the rotors is pristine. She's a 3-rotor M4 naval model, he notes. Exactly what we needed. That night, in the barracks, Lang lies awake on his cot. He can hear the hum of generators outside, the low murmur of guards changing shifts. The war feels impossibly far away, yet every sound reminds him that it still rages on, and that his crew's capture has just tilted it even further from Germany's favor. He replays in his mind every order he's ever received from headquarters, every encrypted signal, every convoy report. Were they all read and laughed at by British officers sipping tea in some country estate? The humiliation burns deeper than the defeat itself. Days later, an American officer visits the holding quarters. He's polite, professional, but distant. "Captain Lang," he begins, "you and your men will be transferred to a POW camp here in the States. You'll be treated according to the Geneva Convention, but you must not discuss anything you saw aboard this ship." Lang tilts his head. "And if we do?" The officer's voice lowers. "Then Berlin will know you're alive. And that would be unfortunate." For the first time, Lang understands the scale of the deception. The Allies aren't just winning through force. They're winning through silence, through secrets, through the quiet killing of knowledge itself. Weeks later, reports begin filtering through Allied intelligence. U-boat sinkings increase dramatically. Convoys cross the Atlantic almost untouched. And in the map room of Bletchley Park, a small red pin labeled U-505 is quietly moved from active to captured, source secured. Back in his cell, Lang finally whispers what he's known since the day his submarine surfaced. The code was never broken. It was betrayed, by time, by luck, by us. He stares at his hands, the same hands that once typed messages he thought the world would never read, and realizes the truth that will haunt him for the rest of his life. The enemy had been listening all along.